Well, good evening, everyone. We've got some live guests here in studio. We're here with Adel Gadala from Trends Electronics. He's going to talk about iConnect and Exile tonight. We're going to go over all the features and benefits of the wiring line and why we brought it in for our retail and wholesale customers, and why you really want to look for a high-quality amp kit these days. To pair with our amp kits, we've got Exile. We have it in a couple different flavors. It is a limited line to us, basically party packs. So we're going to be talking about their new slimline sub, the dual 10s, dual 12s, single 10, single 12 with their 600 watt amplifier, as well as some of the exterior features that Exile is a line, so we can always round them out to be a full system feature. And Adel's going to take it away from here.
Perfect.
So Adel, thank you so much for coming tonight. It's our first live with people in the studio in over 2 years, so we're excited to do this, and thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adel.
All right.
Take it away.
Thanks, guys, and thanks for being here live. So for being here live, we actually have a little bit of a contest, and we'll ask a few questions right after the training as well, and we're actually giving away an Exile Marine 5-channel amplifier. So it's retail at $899. It's actually much higher than that, but you guys have it on sale at $899. New dealer cost on this is now $650. So it's a great value, and one of you guys are going to go home with it today. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about some of the history of Exile and iConnect, because there's actually a strong tie between those two. Trends has been in the business for 35 years, and they had a really strong relationship with a company called Phoenix Gold back when Phoenix Gold was really kind of setting the standard in car audio. If you look now on any of the websites, it's still a very sought after amplifier. People are paying big dollars for some of those old generation amplifiers because they were really the first to introduce something that was high current, high power, great sounding musical amplifiers back in the day. And about 25 years ago, the company got sold. And when the company got sold, they got sold to like an offshore trading company like a lot of high-end brands have been. And two of the engineers broke away and started Exile. So that's where the history of Exile comes from. And I thought it was important to really mention that, because when you have a product that a lot of people don't know of or haven't heard of, it's important to know the history and know that it's not just a offshore brand that someone sticks a label on it and brings a container in and sells them in Canada. So it's actually very highly engineered. It's actually owned by Grant Dowse now, who owns Trends Electronics, so it's Canadian owned. And the history of iConnect is actually the owner of Phoenix Gold moved to Taiwan. He's an American, but moved to Taiwan right after the company was sold, and sources high-end product for just about every product that you may see. You probably have product here that he's engineered and sourced for you. So that's where iConnect comes from. So he helps us design it, he helps us source it, he lives in Taiwan, fluent in all those Asian languages, plus American, highly intelligent guy, and very well connected. So the iConnect product all comes from probably one of the most reputable accessory companies out of Taiwan, or out of anywhere made in Taiwan. So that's where some of the history of the product comes from. And where Exile really got spawned is Exile, when they broke away from Phoenix, saw a hole in the market for marine audio. So really that's the history of Exile, is more marine than it is car audio. And what they've been doing for us is actually designing a lot of OEM product for us as well. So when Grant saw what some of the big box stores are making for margin and what they're doing with the product and the volume out there, he really saw the opportunity to take that kind of product and make something exclusive that independents can really benefit from the same kind of thing from. So he bought the company based on that. It's still run by the same people out of the US, but now it has a lot of Canadian direction. So we get to really source, design, do our own thing with Exile and iConnect. So we have 100% control over what happens with it. So we're pretty proud of the product that's made. So I'll start with iConnect. You have two basic lines. There's Core and there's Pro. So the Core kits are these guys, and the Pro kits are these. And I think we've learned from a lot of the things that have happened in the marketplace with some of the, when copper gets expensive, people were subbing aluminum in and doing all kinds of stuff with aluminum and other materials that really was an absolute nightmare, because the car audio environment is absolutely harsh, and marine is even worse. So what was happening with some of that copper wire over time is it would internally corrode, cause high resistance connections, heat, and failure eventually, and in some cases fires, because that's what happens with high resistance connections. So all the iConnect, regardless of core or pro, is 100% OFC copper, and it's also aluminum clad or tinned copper. So you got a coating over the top of the copper that can't really corrode. So copper on its own will also corrode over time. It turns green. If you've ever looked at old speaker wire or that sort of thing where the connection is, it starts to green and corrode. By having it tinned, that eliminates that as well. So it lasts about 10 times longer than even regular copper and gives you a lot more current flow. And that's obviously key for car audio and amplifiers. The difference between the two is when you go from core to pro, it's about 15 to 20% finer stranding. So you get a higher strand count, which is a lot less resistance, a lot more current flow. Again, that's what you're looking for in power cable. The other thing between the two is when you go to a pro, you go to a 16 gauge wire versus an 18 gauge wire for speaker. And you also go to an angled, so basically the RCA cables in the Pro kit are these guys. So they're strain relieved and they're right angle on one side. So when you're doing install, if you're tight behind the dash on a head unit, you got a right angle you can drop, or if you're working on an amp rack, you can come right out and down into the amp rack. So it gives you some options there. As where these guys are just a straight RCA out. And then we have other things in the kit. So we have an 8 gauge kit and a 4 gauge kit in both Pro and Core. So depending how much power you're running. We also have multiple amp kits. So this gives you a power block and a ground block, power cable and ground cable. So when you're running multiple amps in the back, you can wire it all with this kit. And then on the fuse holders, we have mini A&Ls and the full-size ones. Again, depending on how much current you're drawing, how much fusing you need, you got obviously options for both. Bless you. And we have power distribution blocks. Hopefully we'll expand that line to multiple blocks. Dave's actually come up with a lot of recommendations. The larger fuse holders were recommended by Dave. The ring terminals were recommended by Dave. And one of the big benefits to owning the line is that we can source all those things. It's our product line to do what we want with.
So just a quick question. So in the fuses, you've got those in retail packaging?
Yes.
And A&L and mini A&L?
Yes.
And the most common sizes?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then there's two grades of ring terminals. There's the standard, which is an open-ended ring terminal with a split. So it's just basically one piece of copper that's folded over, tinned, and you crimp it or solder it, but it's open on both ends. As where the Pro one is a double folded sealed end. So when you put your power cable in there, fill it full of solder, it's completely sealed off. And it's heavier gauge.
And those are available in what gauge?
Anywhere from an 8 to a 1/0.
So all the sizes are covered then?
Yes.
So on top of the kits, is there bulk wire?
Yes. Yeah, we have 8 gauge bulk wire, 4 gauge bulk wire, 1/0 bulk wire in both ground and power. We have a multi-conductor wire for RGB lighting. We have 16 gauge, 18 gauge, and 12 gauge power or speaker wire. All the bulk wire is only available in Pro. We don't do a core bulk wire. It's all Pro series when you go to bulk. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions on iConnect?
I see that there's some high-level converters in the middle there too.
Yes. So we do a couple of high-level converters, a 2-channel and a 4-channel. Both of them can handle up to 10 volts. So when you're doing a factory integration system and you have an amplifier that can't handle the 10 volts indirectly, that gives you a great option that's nice and quiet and keeps it clean.
Is there any other special attenuations or switches on the high levels?
Yep, it's got a high-low, 4-channel or 2-channel. So if you are using this guy, you'll actually jump between the two. So you can have one set of speaker line in and 2 sets of RCA outs. Yeah.
Awesome. There's some extra auxiliary cables here at the front that I see. What are those about?
Oh, these guys. So this is a Toslink cable. Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, what are those?
Yeah, so it's a fiber optic cable. So if you're using some of the integration modules, they'll give you a fiber optic out or a fiber optic in, so you can use those cables for that. Or if you have a head unit with a fiber out, you have that option as well. Good. Okay, on to Exile. We'll start with the boxes, I guess. We have a dual 12, a dual 10, a single 12, and a single 10 box. All of them have great cosmetics. They're beautiful, especially for the cost of them. So they've done a fantastic job with that. And some of the other features that look like they're just cosmetic, like if you look at some of the ridges and flutes and stuff that go on in there, yes, they make it look a whole lot better, but they also add a lot of rigidity to the panel. So when you got a big open panel like this, adding these ridges in there are kind of like adding stiffness or flutes on the inside as well. All of them are ported. You do a slot port on the side, so a lot more output. And tuned fairly low, they're a great sounding speaker, especially for the value. When you get into the truck box or the slimline, it's a really unique driver. It's actually aluminum cone, shallow driver. And again, for the price, you know, the reason they can do that kind of thing is really, it goes factory from China where it's manufactured. It's our design, it's our everything, but it's manufactured in China and it comes directly to Trends Electronics. So there's no steps. It doesn't go into the US and across the border into Canada. It's a direct line for us. So there's so much savings in there, and it gives you great value, great profit margin, and still great value to the customer as well.
What kind of power handling do the subwoofers have?
The 10s and 12s are the same. They're 300 watts each. So the boxes are a 600 watt or 1,000 watt peak power. So they're 600 watts RMS.
Awesome.
And a
what
2
about the
invoice
slim?
coils. It is 300 watts.
300 watts.
Yep.
Does that one come in a powered version too?
Yep, so there's 2 versions. There's passive and powered. The powered one uses a little Class D amplifiers with high level input. So it's a great factory upgrade. Yeah, and it's, I think cost on it is $200 for the powered unit and $150 for the passive.
Your
So-
boxes, they're all 2 ohm?
2 ohm and 4 ohm for the singles.
For
Oh, sorry, they're 2 ohm on the singles as well. They're dual voice coil. Yeah, so both the duals and the single sub boxes are 2 ohm load.
Which is pretty common these days.
Yeah.
Everybody seems to be loading 2 ohm a lot more just for stability.
Yeah, you're working the hand pretty hard if you got it down to 1 ohm.
Yeah. So we see the 600 watt amplifier on the table here. Is there companion amplifiers to those?
Yes, there's a 600 watt, a 1,000 watt, a 1,500 watt, all monos. And then we do a 4 by 60, and we do a 5-channel, which is 4 by 60 and 1 by 400.
So really good power handling across the board. So
Yeah.
if we do have a customer that wanted to flush out the system and have amps that match, those are available.
All available. And I know you and I talked a little bit about it, Dave, but one of the downsides to selling this kit with a mono amplifier is it's always going to be a mono amplifier. So if they want to come back and upgrade in the future, really there's nothing else you can do with that mono amplifier. If it's a 600 watt mono, you can't move that one to the front and add something to the back. that amp is basically pulled out and you're starting over again. So one of the recommendations and one of the things you and I talked about is why not sell a subwoofer with a 4-channel version of this and bridge it down to run the 2 subwoofers. So you run it 2 channels to the double box, and in the future you can take that 4-channel, run it to the front and rears, and run a mono to the sub.
Leave some upgradability in the future.
Yeah.
Well, won't that
Yeah.
4-channel have less power?
If you're bridging it 2 channels, it should have more than enough to run either one of those boxes.
In the duals?
Yeah.
So the idea there would just be able to leave headroom for that package buyer.
Right.
Just getting into car audio. Maybe they haven't experienced bass before. They don't really understand what they need to make an audio system sound good.
Yep.
And they want to start somewhere. So by offering them a 4-channel amplifier in their speaker package to get subwoofers going, sometimes we get lucky and we're able to also amplify a set of front speakers for them.
Right.
So by doing that, we can increase the headroom of the system, give them a little bit more clarity without having to really push the volume knob. So
Yeah.
we really like that idea of a customer coming back and continuing their build with us, because we all know as audio builders, a subwoofer and amp isn't the last stage; it's the first stage.
It's
So-
kind of a gateway drug, we call it, right? It's once someone gets that bass feeling, and a lot of people haven't experienced that. And once you get that into a car environment, it's huge, and it just starts escalating from there. And like Dave said, head units have, a lot of them have great power, but they're very, very limited. And power not only gives you output, it gives you sound quality, it gives you control, it gives you, it's what opens that stage up. It's what makes things sound great. And you can always, I always explain it that you can blow speakers up with too little power a lot faster than you can with too much power. Speakers like power as long as it's clean power. As soon as you start overdriving a speaker with an amplifier that's underrated or even at its limits, that's when you start blowing things up.
we say that there's not enough brakes, right?
Yeah,
I can send the woofer, but can I stop it?
yeah, and it's also, once an amplifier goes into a clipping mode, it doesn't send a nice clean signal anymore, it's a square wave. And now your voice coil isn't moving up and down nice and smooth like it's supposed to. It goes up and it stops, goes down and it stops, goes up and it stops. And every time it stops, your voice coil isn't a voice coil anymore, it's a toaster element. And it just goes whoop, and it goes red hot, goes down, goes whoop, goes red hot. So if you keep doing that, that's what takes out speakers.
Yeah.
So as long as you're sending it a nice sine wave constantly, they're pretty happy.
Yeah. So obviously, we're going to have a lot of customers, it's their first time with a sub and amplifier in their vehicle. What if they get a little heavy-handed and they want to turn the subs up a little too much and maybe they blow one? What's the warranty like on Exile?
Well, that's what we're going to get to. So warranty on Exile is 1 year across the board and 2 years if you guys install it. So it gives you some incentive to get some business into the install bay, and it gives everyone a little bit of peace of mind that it's done right.
Absolutely.
Right. And some of the features on the amplifiers as well, because we know that these things are going to go to a first-time buyer in a lot of cases, because it's, for the price point, it's great power, great value, and it ends up in a lot of first-time audio guys. So the amplifier's got a sub-level controller, a remote one. It comes with all the amplifiers. The only one it doesn't come with is the 4-channel, but it comes with a 5-channel and all the mono blocks. It also gives you a subsonic filter, a variable subsonic filter. Are you guys all comfortable with what they are, what that does?
You know what? We've been out of the loop here for a while in training. I think we need an explanation.
Okay. Everyone understands what a crossover does. A crossover basically takes an input signal and sends the right frequencies to the right places. Like, you don't want to send high frequencies or mid frequencies to your subwoofer. It's just a subwoofer. It only wants to see sub frequencies. So what a subsonic filter does is it gives you another level of crossover. Basically, it's a high pass crossover set at a really low frequency. So for example, every box has a tuning frequency, especially ported boxes. So they're only tuned to 40 hertz. If you're sending anything below that frequency to the subwoofer, it basically unloads because it's not at the tuning frequency of the port anymore, and it basically thinks it's almost free air, and it's not making any sound. So by eliminating those low bass frequencies out of it, you're still getting all the output from the sub box, but you're giving that subwoofer huge protection because now it's not trying to play something it's not capable of playing. So it's got a variable subsonic filter on it, and the installers are, a lot of people say, well, if the box is tuned to 40, I'll set the subsonic filter at 40. Well, that's not always the case because they all have a gradual slope, and most of them are 12 dB per octave. So that means at 40 hertz, it stops rolling off, but it's still playing 20 hertz, 12 dB down. So if you really get into it, it's still driving that subwoofer low. So it's good to take it up a little bit higher, and basically the healthiest way to do it, unless you got an oscilloscope and everything else to go with it, or a sine wave generator to see where it actually is, you can do it by ear. You just get the thing humming, and just once you start hearing it kind of bottom out, you can just back it off a little bit, and it adds a whole level of protection.
That's a great feature. Most amplifiers, it's just a switch. We get to turn it on and off.
Yeah, and
So
who
we
knows
don't
what
know
that
where
switch
it's-
is, right? Which is a really cool feature, especially in an amplifier of this value.
Do a lot of your boxes differ in the tuning frequency, or are they all relatively similar?
They're all around that 40 hertz.
That's really good then.
Yeah.
Do the amplifiers have high-level inputs?
Yep, you can actually go 10 volts right into the RCA cable. So almost every car, you don't need a high-level adapter. You can just cut a set of RCA cables, put the ends on it, and plug it right in.
Very good.
Yeah.
Anything new and exciting coming down the road for Exile?
Yeah, there's quite a bit actually. We really saw, when we designed this product, we really saw a hole in the market for that entry-level, value-priced product. But there's a whole new line of amplifiers coming that's a step up. And they're going to be a hybrid amplifier, so it's going to be marine and 12 volt, so it'll be car and marine audio. So they'll all have the protected circuit boards, all the features of a marine audio amplifier, but still be applicable for car. And some of the cool features they have is all the crossover controls and stuff are going to be right on the top with a removable, sealable cover. And they're going to have little feet, so they're actually elevated off of the amp rack or whatever you're installing it on. So you can come right out of the front, go underneath, and tuck the wires into your amp rack so there's nothing visible.
That's really nice for marine because we're usually surface mounted, right?
Yeah, exactly. And they're frustrating because you're usually in a pretty cramped spot trying to get in there, so it gives you a little bit of flexibility, especially because a lot of people were putting little spacers underneath, so you're worried about the spacers falling down while you're installing amplifiers, but they're going to have elevated feet right from factory. And then there's also going to be a really cool little kit that you can bolt to the mounting platform, and it'll stagger multiple amplifiers so you can set them up like a set of stairs almost above each other. And so you have access to this one, you have access to all the different controls right from the amp rack.
So Exile is moving more into a complete system solution with mounting options even?
Yes.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And I get excited about the product because it's like putting the old band back together. So two of the engineers I knew really well from Phoenix Gold days, they're the ones that are really driving this. But one of the other engineers, who was actually an acoustical engineer from Canada, lived in Calgary. We got him, you may know him actually, Dominic Boyden Country, Sean. He used to compete a lot, played a role in a lot of the system designs out of the Calgary store. Just a fantastic guy, but he's an acoustical engineer trained in Calgary. And so he was working at a retail store in Calgary designing some unbelievable stuff. So we actually transplanted him from that store in Calgary to Portland. We moved him to Portland with Phoenix Gold, and he became their speaker engineer. And when the company got sold, two of the guys broke away to do this, and he ended up going to Harman International, and he was a VP at Harman for years, designing their Revo, thousands and thousands of dollar home speakers. And that's his passion. He's an audio guy, and a very, very, very good friend. And then when Harman got sold, he ended up moving his family back to Calgary from California, because that's where he wanted to raise his kids. And now he's working with the same group again with the Exile guys, and that's where some of the new speakers are coming from. And a lot of you'll see a lot of new speakers coming from Exile, and they'll be Dominic speakers. And he's working on some really cool stuff.
That's exciting because we lost so many engineers in the audio industry, and it seemed a little bit washed out and a little bit big box,
Yeah,
and not so focused on the product anymore. Really focused on marketing
and price points and
crazy
yeah.
boxes. So that's great to hear that we're getting some of those guys back, and they're excited to be in the industry again.
Yeah, and so one of the cool things that he is working on, and it'll be coming down the pipe, is we actually do marine towers, and we do 2 versions of them. We do a horn tower, and we do a soft dome tower, or an aluminum dome tower. So you can either use it for, are you guys all comfortable with how marine audio works? Basically, you want a horn driver if it's a towboat. If you're skiing or kneeboarding or tubing, that sort of thing, you want a horn speaker because you want it to project that 80 feet behind the boat where the tuber or skier or kneeboarder is. But generally, when you get closer to them, they'll tear your face off because they get really harsh because the horns are so efficient and so they're edgy until you get to where they're actually voiced, which is 80 feet out. So they're designed to sound best when you're 80 feet away from them. And then with the popularity of surf boats now, so many people are surfing rather than wakeboarding, now you're 5-10 feet behind the boat. So you want something that sounds good when you're up close. So if you look at a lot of the new surf boats, they'll actually have 4 speakers on the towers. So you'll have a horn speaker, and you'll have a soft dome or a standard conventional dome tweeter. So you have the best of both worlds. You can switch them off and on or play both of them if you want. So what Dominic's been designing is a new tower with a tweeter array that's horn loaded. So it'll give you that projection like a horn, but it'll sound like a standard tweeter. So it's going to be kind of a hybrid speaker, and he's got working prototypes that sound absolutely amazing. So that's going to be coming down the pipe from Exile as well.
So just to put Exile kind of in the realm of, wet sounds to Cerwin Vega, are they in the high end, are they low end, are they kind of in the middle of the road? 'Cause we want to understand where the customers are at with Exile as well. So,
Yeah.
Obviously wet sounds is this upper echelon of marine audio, and Exile has the look.
Yeah.
They have the performance too.
I would say it's just a step below a JL or a wet sound, but not much below. And the value is amazing. Like a horn loaded 8-inch or 9-inch Exile tower speaker is $900 cost. And it's a real compression driver. It's not just a inexpensive horn. It's a serious compression driver, great cosmetics, lots of flexibility with the bracket. And the bracketing system is really cool if you haven't seen it. It comes with the clamp for the bar, and it comes with a quick release. So you just flip the little lever, kind of like a seat or a your tire on your mountain bike. You flip the lever, and the whole thing comes off. And it's actually got like a phono plug, so there's no wiring. As soon as you plop it back on and lock it in place, you made connection.
Now, Exile has tower plates, do they not? For all
Yes.
the different towers?
Almost everything. Yep. So you
So
can.
no custom building, they've got it in the catalog.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
Lots of flexibility.
What are the most popular towers you're seeing these days?
Still probably the 9-inch compression horn, the XM9 or the 9-inch. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Does Exile do a Bluetooth amplifier at all?
We have Bluetooth modules in a lot of different forms.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. So it's just you can actually hide one underneath your dash if you want,
Yeah.
and it gives you an RCA out to your amplifier. Yep.
Well, I think we've got a crowd of people. I think there's some questions that need to be asked,
Yes.
I'm sure. So we're going to turn to the crowd here and see if there's any questions for tonight.
I kind of missed meeting. Did we talk about the iConnect stuff already?
We did. Sorry
We
you're a
did.
little late.
Yeah.
We did record it, so you can absolutely
Okay.
look back. But if you've got any quick questions about the iConnect line, because you have been selling it,
Yeah, so well, I'm curious, what would separate, say, doing iConnect kit from a Rockford amp?
So obviously, we talked about the quality of the wire.
Yeah.
You know, we're really talking about pure OFC copper and then a tin program, so they will last a lot longer in the environment of moisture. You're not going to see a lot of corrosion with these. You're not going to see melted fuse holders. You're not going to see that kind of jankiness over the years when it
Yeah.
gets a little bit older.
And I'm sorry, I don't, I've never played with the Rockford kit, so I'm not sure if it's OFC or what percentage of copper it is or
So we're
that sort of thing.
unfortunately seeing the market slip. People aren't really holding the quality like they used to. So when we look at new cell sheets and we're seeing new costs come out, we're seeing reductions in amp kit costs.
Oh, and which
And
doesn't make
that
any
just doesn't
sense.
seem normal. So when you go and look at specs, you're starting to see 10% aluminum added into the OFC kits. You're seeing a copper clad. You're seeing certain things starting to transition. We've seen as bad as 60-40.
Wow.
So they're really getting cheap on some of these.
And I'm
kits.
not sure if you guys were, in the install bays or, during the whole copper clad aluminum days and saw some of the nightmares that were happening with that. It was just, it was awful. Like wires would melt, like it would start corroding internally. It just caused so much grief.
So one of the things we've seen as installers, you may have seen a fuse, 60 or 80 amp, and instead of it popping, it's melted. Well, that's due to corrosion in most cases and really bad wire. It's not a faulty fuse. It's that at the connection points, there's a really bad restriction, and instead of it being a short to ground, it's this huge resistor. And
Yeah.
it just starts getting really hot. And I know we all really love the cars we're installing these things into, and we would hate to lose them to an electrical fire. And in a lot of cases with copper clad, you're not running into a situation where a fuse can help you. Once the wire gets enough resistance in it, it turns into a toaster element at 60 amps. And it will run at 60 amps until it burns the car down, even though there's a fuse. So it's really important to stress the quality of the wire to the consumer because it's really important. It's probably the most important part of any stereo system is the wiring, because we all can get speakers from so many different places with so many different specifications, but the wire is so
Yeah.
important to the rest of the install.
And as you see cost increases, people manufacturers will start rolling back, trying to compensate somewhere so they could still offer the same product at the same price. So they're compromising somewhere along the line. Like in the 70s, copper prices went through the roof. And people started wiring homes with aluminum wire instead of copper wire. Now if you buy a house that's wired in aluminum, you can't even get insurance on it. So it's a matter of rewiring or putting copper pigtails on the connections because they become high resistance connections and could start fires. So it's not just a bunch of blurb, it's reality, it's what happens. So not only is it 100% copper, but it's also, it's tinned. So even if you look at a copper wire over time, where you make the connection where it's open to air, it'll start turning green and start oxidizing. And so the tinned wire really eliminates that as well. So it's got a coating over top of it, so it reduces that.
And that's available in Core and Pro?
Yes.
Correct? Not in the entry-level blue kits, or is it in the blue
Yep,
kits?
it's in the blue kit. All of it is
Very cool.
tinned.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, the only difference between the two is the strand count. So it's a finer strand in the Pro kits.
How long has Exile been a brand for?
Exile's been around for about 20 years.
Oh, okay.
Yep, and in car audio for only about a year.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah,
So
but
just-
been in marine forever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So unlike everyone else who's scrambling to be in Marine, these guys are scrambling to be in car audio.
Yes. Yeah. Yep, and they've done a good job of it. So it's a product that's got lots of history, lots of engineering. It's been super reliable. I know you guys have sold quite a few of the kits. I don't know if you've seen anything come back.
I think we've had one, but we're pretty sure it was an amplifier that got turned up because someone was a little overjealous.
Oh, they turn the volume up on the amp.
Yeah, that gains volume.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
no fault of the subwoofer. It's just someone really liked the bass they were getting.
Right.
So can't fault them in that. They were inexperienced. They didn't really understand what that meant. And after a quick counter explanation, they realized their mistake, and we swapped them for them and took care of the customer.
Yeah.
And they are thumping away again, just as
Perfect.
happy as can be.
Perfect. And was that a self-install or you guys?
It was a self-install, so, hey, that happens. It's
Yeah.
new guys to car audio. They want to do things themselves. They want to learn.
Oh, yeah.
So we're here to help them do that. So it's great to have a great wiring line that comes with pre-terminated wiring for those guys, right?
Yeah.
So one of the big advantages of iConnect is that it is pre-terminated. So you don't have to make those hard crimp connections on the big power wires, which is incredibly nice for installers. And it really leads to a complete solution that saves time in the bay and encourages self-install if they want to do them.
Right. Yep. And you wouldn't believe some of the questions I get from some of the big box store guys and that sort of thing. I walked into one store and he said, well, the amps are great, but they're really inconsistent. I go, what do you mean inconsistent? And he said, well, sometimes we install them and we have to turn the volume up all the way. And then sometimes we install them and we don't have to turn them up at all. Like they're really inconsistent power output. I go, by volume, you mean the gain control? And he goes, yeah. Sometimes we have to crank the gain up to get the output. I go, well, this is how it works. The gain control is in the preamp stage. It's just compensating for the signal coming in. Has nothing to do with the output. So it's, there's just a lot of misconceptions out there for sure.
How do you go about getting listed as a dealer on the Exile website?
We are working on that right now for Canadian dealers, so hopefully within the next week or so.
Okay. And is there an iConnect's website?
There isn't, no.
There is not. Okay.
Yeah. Exile there is because Exile's been around forever, so they've been marketing in the US for 20 years. So they've done a little bit more groundwork than we have with iConnect.
So you got cataloging available for the iConnect line?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to get some of those for our staff, obviously.
Yeah, and if you're interested, we have PowerPoints. I just didn't want to kill you guys with PowerPoints and presentations. I just thought I'd come up here, and I think one of the most important things is, especially with a new line like Exile, if you don't know what it is, it's important to know the history of it and where it comes from, because there is so many brands out there that are just badge engineered. They just go to China or wherever they're manufactured and say, yeah, okay, I'll take a container of those and call it this for me, and I'll take them in red, right? It's just, but Exile is truly a engineered product.
If we were to give you a template that we use for populating our websites to be able to show the iConnect's product and the Exile product, could you populate that file and send it back to us? So that we
I'm
can-
sure our marketing guy can do that. He's a little bit overwhelmed because if you've been on the Trends website, he's been super busy. He just changed our whole look of the whole company. He's changed logos, changed colors. He's been working on that for a year. That's a pretty big undertaking.
And that being said, iConnect has been put up on your website. So if it's on your website, a lot of the same information you guys would need to put it up on yours, we'll need for
Yeah,
yours.
so I'm sure he could just share
Very
that.
similar. So
Yeah.
we can absolutely work with that.
Yeah, there's no dedicated iConnect website, but it's all on ours for sure.
Any other questions from the crowd?
Your high-level adapters, are they the same as the amp? They're just 10 volt?
Yeah,
Okay.
just a 10 volt. We are working on new ones. I'm not sure what the input voltage will be on those, but we are working
More
on
the
some new
merrier.
ones. Yeah, because some of them now are just,
They're crazy. We've seen
Well, the
30.
LC2I is up to 40 amp.
Yeah.
40 volt.
yeah, it's limited, but there's cars out there that require that now.
Oh, yeah.
Is it
Yeah,
BMWs that are doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We see
Steve,
Mercedes.
Steve
Yeah.
Mead, he did a whole thing on like 15 different high-level adapters. Tested them all, checked out where they started to clip, everything like that. And yeah, like the audio control LC2I is pretty much destroyed all of them, but
Yeah.
there's some out there that were like, actually, this is performing better than it's supposed to,
Yeah.
and everything like that.
So they handle more than they actually rated.
Actually rated it, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, so. I just wanted to know, because, yeah, we need something at least 10 volts.
Right.
Anything
Yes.
smaller than that, it's
Yeah.
not really, we shouldn't really.
In
be
the
selling.
domestic and Japanese market, 10's about right,
Yeah.
but it's starting to get a little heavy-handed because we're seeing the B&Os and we're seeing the Bose
Oh, the
systems.
Fords.
And they're really pushing. Like I'm amazed how much power they're really pushing on the sub channels.
Yeah.
Because they're using free air subs, so they need more power.
Right.
Right? So they've gone to an oval free air behind the seat. There's no more box. And where we used to see about 150 watts, we're seeing 300 watts.
And I think they needed to change that. The very first B&O system, especially in the full-size trucks,
They were terrible.
they're awful. They couldn't even, you had your windows down in your diesel, you couldn't even hear the audio system.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
just didn't have the output. So they're getting better, getting smarter.
Fortunately for us, there's still lots of headroom to add.
Oh
subs.
yeah, absolutely. It's never enough, especially with subwoofers. That's always the big upgrade.
Any thought into dual shallow that fits under the backseat of the truck?
There's a bunch of new stuff coming, and we're also going to make these subwoofers available separately.
Perfect.
Yeah. So that's expanding as well. And there's going to be a new line of cast drivers that'll be sold separate, and we're going to make the aluminum shallow subwoofers available separate as well. Yeah, so it keeps evolving. So for a line that's only been around for a year, it's growing pretty quickly. Yeah.
Okay, well, if there's no other questions,
I do have some questions for you guys.
you got questions for us.
Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah. So the test starts. So for every person that gets one right or answers a question, we'll add your name in for the 5-channel Javelin amplifier at a $650 dealer cost. Okay. So what I put on there is who can name one of the benefits to the tin copper wire? Byron?
Smaller strands, so it's instead of the thicker core on the smaller kits, there's smaller strands to put more wire into it.
Well, it's not exactly
I
the.
wasn't here for it, I just got it off.
Oxygen,
That's
free
a-
copper, and tin coating.
Yes, but what's the benefit of that?
Oh, lasts longer.
Perfect. Okay, but that is correct. That's the difference between the two
Yeah.
two gauges. So are you going to keep track?
Half
Yeah,
a
I am.
name in the
Okay.
top,
Half
full
of
name.
I didn't cover this, and I should cover it, but with that feature on the iConnex, you can actually use it for marine. So it's a very safe marine cable because it's got all that added protection in it as well.
Now, consumers don't fully understand that marine require both a power and a ground run. Obviously, we sell the bulk.
Yeah.
Any thought into actually doing a marine dedicated kit that has equal length power and ground, 20 foot each?
We haven't, and do you think 20 feet would be, it's just,
It's hard.
it's hard with marine because sometimes they're 14-foot boats, sometimes they're 24-foot
And depending
boats.
on where they're mounting the amp is.
Yeah, it's, I think there's, with a car you can kind of generalize, but in a boat, I don't know if you can, right? It's just,
You know, we see it from some other manufacturers where they have the kits that have both, 16 each for bikes, 25 each for boats, and it gets a customer close.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, it may limit exactly where they want to put stuff sometimes, but
Yeah.
in most cases, it's nice to have a kit, especially for the self-installer.
yeah.
Um,
Do you get self-installers on
we
boats?
do. We do.
That's just scary.
So we're in a builder market. So
Yeah.
JB's Dick's Performance, as much as we love installing
Oh,
stuff,
going directly to the manufacturers.
We have builders. We have guys that they want to build their own system. They're building a jet boat at home. Now they want to put in their own stereo.
Yeah,
And we have that happening in Alberta, which is an exciting thing to have happen.
yeah,
But we're seeing more and more kits being built in Alberta, especially in the riverboat market. So it's always good to help those guys out and offer them a well-packaged product that's here's something you
Just
can
over the
use all
counter
the time
and-
without having to guess at how long you need. And
Right.
if you have a little extra on this one or a little short on that one, then you know for next time. But a lot of guys are looking for an entry point. And
Right.
an all-inclusive kit is nice that way.
Okay, well, I can certainly recommend it.
Do you guys offer your fuse holders are powerful? Do you actually have like a waterproof fuse holder or the?
They do have seals on both ends.
That's not, yeah, that's more of just like a.
Yeah, these are
resistant.
more water. I actually talked
Yeah.
about this, about the waterproof like the gangs that
Yeah.
you can connect wires to. I meant to give you a sample of one of them last time you were here.
Yes,
I will this time.
okay. Yeah, right now they just have ring terminal, like the seals on both ends, but where the wire actually connects, it's not.
Lucky for us, we do have options in other lines, but of course we want iConnects to be completely rounded. So I will share with what we're using in some of the other lines, the two
Okay.
styles that we've been lucky enough to use.
Yeah,
And like I had said, like if we have something a lot like your ground block that comes with a strap, it
Yeah.
can be used as power or ground in
Right.
waterproof, because our waterproof amplifiers, of course, come pre-terminated.
Right.
So we're into the IPX 65 and 67 now, amplifiers where they just come with an 8-gauge wire coming out the amplifier.
And they're completely sealed off.
And they're completely sealed. So
Yeah.
you want to retain the waterproofness. If you use a normal fuse holder, the waterproofness is gone.
Right.
So it's nice to have a fuse holder that also has, that grounding shank in there,
Yeah.
so we can use it as power.
Hopefully they're not underwater.
Yeah. We hope they're not. But it does happen. And
Yes.
I speak mostly about the power sports industry because
Yeah.
there's something about riding ATVs at chest deep water for some reason.
They
And
like
the
it.
amplifier is never above their
Well, you
waist.
don't buy that snorkel for nothing.
Exactly. So just something to think about. So I'll
Yeah.
help you guys out with that one and
Okay,
give you
cool.
a sample.
Okay.
Dave, we're still keeping Scotia for,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. So who can name the difference between the Core and the Pro?
I just, yeah.
Okay, what was it again, Byron?
Was it? It has thinner strands, multi-strand.
The other one's
Yeah.
the speaker wire difference.
Yep.
And the RCA's, 90s.
And the RC is north
Look
of
at
90s.
that. Cool. So who are we gonna give those points to?
One and one.
You guys are just gonna rock, paper, scissors for this after?
Well, get in here, guys. Jeez, you know the stuff.
Who can
I'm
name
not that guy, I don't know this shit.
who can name one of the unique features of the sub enclosures?
Sub-enclosure. The design.
The dip inside the box.
Yes.
For strength.
Yeah.
Good one, Landon. Anybody else got another one for the boxes? There was one other one about the design of the box.
It's boarded.
There you go.
There you
Speak
go.
up.
It's boarded.
Quick frequency.
What? Get out of here, no.
40
It's
hertz.
installing stuff, man.
There you go.
That's sales
Who said
person.
41st? Kale? Good one, Kale.
Yeah. And what cone material do we use on the shallow box?
What was that?
Aluminum.
What cone material? No. I always have to say that after aluminum.
Yes.
And what's the warranty on Exile?
1 year.
Here, unless
2 years
you
if you're
install it.
Perfect. Oh, yes,
That's
yeah.
Everyone
Awesome.
gets that one but Byron. Byron's the only one that didn't say anything.
Well, because everyone's going, I'm like, all right, long out.
Name a cool feature that the Exile amplifiers have.
Subsonic filter.
Yes. Anything else?
They, except for the mono, or except for the 4-channel, they come with solo control.
Yes. One more?
If you cut the RCA, you got 10 volt.
Yes. Both of them. Okay. Good. Well, that's what I had for questions.
Okay, Del. This was awesome.
Thank you, guys.
We
First
haven't
one.
been able to do this. It's so refreshing to be here live in a room talking with people and having camaraderie because it's so difficult to sit at home in the dark corner of your room with a little video playing and try to pay attention when you really just want to be outside or doing something else in the car
Yeah.
and not really talking about
And I'm honored to be the first one.
And we're honored
And
to
2.5
have you. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you,
we
guys.
all appreciate you so much. And I'd like to give Adele a round of applause.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.